The sun had begun to descend over Jerusalem, casting a golden light across the stone streets and the walls of the temple. It was the hour when merchants packed their stalls, when families finished their daily tasks, and when pilgrims searched for a place to rest before night settled over the city. Yet, in the midst of all that movement, there was someone who never changed his position, someone who year after year could be found in the exact same place: the man born blind. For the inhabitants of Jerusalem, that man was part of the landscape. Some passed by without truly seeing him. Others dropped a coin into his bowl without stopping. Many stared with judgment, believing his blindness was punishment. And there were those who whispered old stories, insisting his misfortune must have had some hidden cause. He heard it all, though no one ever listened to his voice. On that particular day, while many walked toward their homes, Jesus was making his way through the streets with his disciples. They were coming from an intense day, full of teachings, questions, and hostile looks meant to trap him with cleverly crafted arguments. Yet Jesus walked with his usual serenity. His steps were neither hurried nor hesitant, but firm, as if every corner of the city had been woven into his path long before he was born. The disciples followed closely, observing every move of the Master. Peter walked slightly ahead, scanning the surroundings with the instinct of a protector. John remained near Jesus, ready to catch any word that might fall from his lips. Thomas studied the city with unease, as though every shadow could hide a threat. Andrew walked in silence, meditating on everything they had learned during the day. Suddenly, Jesus stopped. The disciples halted as well, scanning the area to understand what had captured his attention. That was when they saw him, the man seated on the ground, hands resting on a worn tunic, his face turned upward toward the fading light. He couldn't see the beauty of the city, nor the colors of the sky, nor the shapes of the people passing by. But he sensed their presence in their footsteps, in their murmurs, in the rhythm of a world that moved without him. Jesus watched him silently, not with pity, not from a distance, but with a gaze that recognized something deeper. When the disciples realized who he was, they remembered the conversations they had often heard in the city. They approached the Master and asked, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" It was a common question of that time. Many believed sickness or misfortune was a direct consequence of sin. But Jesus understood the human heart better than anyone, and his answer broke the logic of those who assumed suffering always had a direct cause. "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," Jesus said, "but this has happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." Those words were not simply an explanation. They were a revelation. Jesus stepped closer to the blind man, who had sensed the voices and halted footsteps but didn't know who stood before him. The Master knelt and took some dirt from the ground. With a gentleness that surprised even the disciples, he mixed the earth with his saliva until it formed a soft clay. Then he placed it over the man's closed eyes. No one spoke. Jerusalem continued its rhythm, but that small corner of the street had become sacred ground. Jesus said calmly, "Go and wash in the pool of Siloam." No debate, no hesitation, no questions. The man, who had never seen the light of the sun, trusted that voice. He rose, leaning on his staff, and began walking through crowds that remained oblivious to the miracle unfolding in silence. Some stepped aside without looking. Others mocked him. But he kept going. The disciples watched him until he disappeared into the distance. The path to the pool was not short. It required passing several streets, avoiding stones, recognizing familiar sounds, and moving among people who had little patience for the weak. But every step the man took was an act of faith. As he walked, Jesus stayed with his disciples, gazing at the sunset turning into night. He didn't need to follow. He already knew what would happen. This moment wasn't improvisation. It was revelation. When the man reached Siloam, he knelt and gathered water in his hands, bringing it to his eyes. At first, he felt nothing different, only cold water. But as the clay dissolved, something within him shifted. The darkness that had been his lifelong companion began to break. Light entered his eyes for the first time. He saw the movement of the water. He saw the stone beneath him. He saw his trembling hands. He saw the colors still clinging to the sky. He saw the astonished faces of those near the pool, faces that could not comprehend how a man born blind could suddenly see. Some doubted. Some called it deception. Others ran to spread the news. But the man repeated only one truth. I was blind, and now I see. The rumor spread rapidly. In Jerusalem, news moved like wind. Soon the Pharisees intervened. They wanted explanations, control, interrogations. They summoned the man and questioned him repeatedly. He told the story plainly. Jesus had put clay on his eyes and told him to wash. That was all. Still, they weren't satisfied. Some insisted Jesus couldn't be from God because he acted on the Sabbath. Others stayed quiet, unable to deny the miracle staring them in the face. The Pharisees even summoned the man's parents. Terrified, they confirmed he had been born blind but avoided saying more, fearing expulsion from the synagogue. The man remained firm. He didn't argue or embellish his story. He simply said, "One thing I do know, I was blind and now I see." The Pharisees, frustrated, expelled him. They couldn't accept that a simple man, someone without influence or education, could testify boldly to a truth they couldn't control. When Jesus learned that the man had been cast out, he went to find him. He saw him walking alone, discovering the world with eyes unused to light. The man had gained vision but lost his place among his own people. Jesus approached him tenderly. The man, hearing his voice, recognized it instantly. The same voice that had spoken to him earlier, the same voice that had changed his life. And the disciples watched, their hearts trembling with reverence. Jesus walked toward the man who had been expelled from the synagogue. He found him moving slowly through the dimly lit street, almost timid in his steps, like someone discovering an entirely new world. The man born blind had regained his sight, but he didn't yet know how to navigate the city with his eyes. Years of relying solely on sound had shaped the way he moved. Now every color, every shape, every reflection startled him. When he heard Jesus' footsteps, he stopped. He did not recognize him by sight. He had never seen him, but there was something familiar in that presence. Jesus called him softly by name, and a tremor ran through the man's heart. "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" Jesus asked. The man looked around, unsure of who spoke, though the tenderness in that voice felt unmistakably familiar. "Lord," he replied, "who is he that I may believe in him?" Jesus stepped forward until he was standing directly in front of him. The moon illuminated his face, and his eyes reflected a compassion deeper than anything the man had ever known. "You have now seen him," Jesus said. "In fact, he is the one speaking with you." Time seemed to pause. Hours earlier, this man had known only darkness. Now he stood face to face with the one who had brought light into his eyes and into his soul. It was not merely physical sight. Something inside awakened with clarity. This was the light that came from God. He fell to his knees. "Lord, I believe," he said. The disciples, who had followed Jesus quietly at a distance, witnessed this moment with awe. It was not a public miracle meant to draw crowds. It was an intimate encounter, a man transformed meeting the Messiah who had healed him. While the man remained kneeling, Jesus lifted his eyes toward Jerusalem. The city stretched before him like a tapestry of lights and shadows. Within it lived genuine seekers of God, but also hardened hearts, faith intertwined with blindness. Jesus knew that contrast better than anyone. Turning back to his disciples, he spoke with the solemnity of one revealing an eternal truth. The code is, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." This was not a metaphor. It was a divine declaration, an unveiled identity. It explained everything they had witnessed. The light entering the eyes of the man was merely a reflection of the eternal light standing before them. Peter lowered his head, overwhelmed. John felt his eyes fill with tears. Andrew understood that the miracle had been only the beginning. Thomas, who often wrestled with doubt, found himself with no questions at all. Jesus helped the man stand and placed him gently beside the disciples. They all stayed there for a few moments, letting the truth settle like a flame ignited in the deepest part of their souls. When they began walking again through the quiet streets of Jerusalem, Jesus spoke calmly. "Light is not given only to see. It is given so that you may walk. And whoever walks with me, even among shadows, will not lose the way." His words echoed as they moved through streets where the trembling glow of oil lamps mixed with darkness from narrow alleyways. The city itself seemed to symbolize what Jesus was teaching, a place where light could pierce even the most hidden corners. The man who had been healed walked with them now. He took slow steps, adjusting to the brightness of the world he had never known. He stared at everything, the walls, the steps, the faces of the people passing by. It was as though the world had been created anew for him. They reached an area where only one lamp remained lit. Its flame shivered in the breeze but refused to go out. Jesus stopped. "This," he said, pointing to the dim lamp, "is the heart that receives my light. No matter how strong the night wind blows, it remains." The disciples realized he wasn't speaking about lamps. He was speaking about them. They continued until the city grew completely silent. It was the hour when even the restless returned to their homes. Jesus led them to a small courtyard where the stones reflected the moonlight. There, surrounded by a profound stillness, he turned toward them and said, "The light of the world is not a poetic idea. It is a promise that never fails." They formed a circle around him. The healed man joined them, unsure of what would happen, but sensing something sacred in the air. Then Jesus spoke with a clarity that pierced the night. To activate this code, Repeat after me." The disciples closed their eyes. The healed man did the same. "Lord Jesus, illuminate my steps." They repeated. "Break my shadows." They repeated, voices trembling. "Guide my life with your light." Again, they repeated, "I receive your word. I am the light of the world." Their voices grew steadier. "Walk with me and guard my path." They repeated, tears streaming quietly. Then Jesus lowered his voice, but his words carried the strength of heaven. The code is activated. A gentle wind swept through the courtyard, almost like a divine affirmation. The disciples opened their eyes, each feeling a peace deeper than they had ever known. The healed man let a single tear fall, not of sorrow, of gratitude. Jesus looked at them with tenderness. "Remember this," he said. "Where there is light, darkness cannot remain." They walked a little farther, leaving behind the moonlit courtyard. The night was still night, but something had changed forever. This teaching would become one of the most powerful truths the disciples would ever carry into the world. The light that never fades. The light that guides. The light that gives life. The light Jesus revealed through a real miracle, in a real moment, for real hearts.